You know when you have a worship work